Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and the Onyx Amulet is finally getting nerfed in patch 10.1.5. If you follow this channel or follow me at all, you'll know that I've been talking about this for a while. This is something that was going to happen. They had talked about it happening in the future, so it always made sense that it was going to happen in 10.1.5 based on the information we had. I had hoped that they would then compensate the classes using it, and they are compensating the classes using it. So they're compensating tanks, pretty much all tanks use it, and then Windwalker monks, rogues, and ret paladins, which is what we cover a lot on this channel. And so I'll be talking about it real quick about the whole thing, and then we'll dive into some specific ret stuff after that as we do. So let's read first. Their developer's note pretty much goes along with what I was thinking. We're lowering the effectiveness of primordial stones that deal damage by 40% to increase gearing options for players. We're compensating specific specializations that are commonly using the Onyx Amulet ring for this damage loss. Then there's some healing notes as well. So exactly what I thought. They're going to nerf it, then they'll compensate. Let's talk about some of the compensations real quick. Blood, 8% damage. Vengeance, 4% damage. Guardian, 6% damage. Monk, Windwalker Monk, 2% damage. Brewmaster Monk, 7% damage. Protection Paladin, 4%. Ret Paladin, 2%. Rogue, 4%. Outlaw Rogue will be getting, it's not in here yet, will be getting a buff as well. And then I think it's Prot Warrior, 6%. So those are the compensations for the Onyx Amulet. This is pretty much in line. I'm guessing they basically just took the amount of damage, percent damage it was doing, or the sim damage it was doing, whatever, and then how much a ring, a high level ring would do. For the 2% for ret, for example, this would be, they're kind of basing it off maybe like a heroic level player, so maybe that's what they're doing for all these classes. A heroic level player, the ring difference will probably be close to a 2%. So if you're like in that eye level range of heroic raid, and not, I guess, not even upgrading. So maybe normal raid where you upgrade to heroic, well, with the new upgrade system. If you're in that range of eye level, it will be about an equalization for you. So if you're wearing the Onyx Amulet and you're of that eye level, it'll be about equalization for you. If you're a ret paladin, for example, and you are a higher end player, this will be a very slight buff for you. And if you're a very casual outdoor player, but you do have the Onyx Amulet and we're using it, it'll actually be a very slight nerf to you. So that's kind of how I would say it in a very generalized way. So again, this is what we were expecting. It's finally here in 10.1.5. 10.1.5 is probably only a couple weeks away from making this video. So from the making of this video, it's probably like 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away. We're talking late June, early to mid-July. So kind of like a 2 or 3 week span of where we expect to see 10.1.5 drop. It's very close to being ready to go already. So we expect to see this very soon. Usually the last thing they do is tuning like this right before a patch drop. So it could be any time really. Again, end of June, early to mid-July. Let's go ahead and talk about how this affects ret specifically real quick. So let's put my Onyx Amulet back on. So we see Onyx Amulet on here, 424. Obviously, things we notice right away, does not have secondary stats. You can enchant it, but you cannot put a gem socket on this ring, like a regular gem socket. So your new ring will be able to have a gem socket. We kind of talked about this already, but if you are like a higher end, high eye level ret player, if you simulate, you know, a 441 or 447 ring, 444 ring or whatever, depending on the stats, you know, it'll be probably a little over 1,000 to about maybe a little bit under 1,000, again depending on eye level of stats, of a decrease from your Onyx Amulet. Now your sim might be at like 115, 120k, 125k, depending again on your gear level. So what you'll notice is that 1,000 DPS is actually less than 2% of your total damage. So you'll actually be getting a very slight buff. We talked about this. If you're a very geared out player, you should be getting, based on sims at least, a very slight buff. How is that? Because this is going to be doing like 6% of your single target damage, right? So how are you getting a slight buff there? because you're getting the 2%, right? 2% of all your damage is up, and that's already made up. And then the other amount is made up by having the secondaries, having stats on your ring. Is going to be making up the rest of that damage, and it should do so. But by simulation standards, it should do that, and it should be fine. You should not feel a nerf. Again, if you're a medium to high-end player, you should not feel a nerf from this Onyx Amulet whatsoever. And that's Mythic Plus player. You don't have to be a Raider. You shouldn't feel a nerf if you're in that level. And so that's where we are there. It's also worth noting that the Seal of Durinus Chosen did not get nerfed. So this ring is still quite strong. For me at least, I cannot find a ring or with stats on it, or I can't make up like do a Titanic ring and put it at a high level with great stats. Cannot get it to sim better than the Seal of Durinus Chosen. So there's still that. Now this ring is closer to being replaceable though on its own. So like you might be able to find a ring that's like really close to the DPS of it. So you can replace it if you want. That's up to you. You get a little bit more stamina if you do that. But we do get to replace this ring. So what are we going to replace it with? Some important things to note here. So I made a video somewhat recently of Crusading Strikes versus Templar Strikes, and it's mostly a playstyle choice. And I still agree with that. You're going to see some high-ranking parties with Templar Strikes, but you are seeing more and more people switch over to Crusading Strikes. Something I did not take note of in that video, I actually had a very good comment about it, and it slips my mind because I was playing with an Enhancement Shaman for most of this raid tier. We actually had him leave, and it made me jar this in my head. But there was a very good comment on the video that without Wind Fury, Crusading Strikes is a lot better than Templar Strikes. But if you have Wind Fury, it is still only a little bit better, right? But a lot of people are switching over to Crusading Strikes because, you know, a lot of people don't have an Enhancement Shaman. And some people just like the playstyle of Crusading Strikes as well. So with those mixtures, you're seeing more of like a 70% of people using Crusading Strikes now in Mythic rating. And so with that, you're going to be using haste a lot, right? And crit even has a pretty good value as well. So with that, one easy thing to hit right now is your critical strike cap. I put quotation marks, so there's no actual cap, but around 28 to 30%, you can see I'm at 28%. 28 to 30%, crit's going to start falling off a lot on your stats, and Verse will then overtake it at that point, because again, during your wings, you're going to be like 50% plus crit, and you know it's not going to, it's going to have very high diminishing returns. So if you're able to kind of get your crit up to that level, that's good, because then you can just say, okay, my crit is at the level it needs to be, high 20s%. My crit's where it needs to be. Now I can, obviously I want to focus on haste if I'm using Crusading Strike auto attack, and then also I can start stacking Verse at this point as well. So for a ring, for me, the perfect thing for me would be a high haste ring that also has some Verse on it. This would increase my damage the most, personally. Now, if your crit's low, you might want to go crit haste, or you might want to go crit Verse if your haste is already super high. Maybe you already have really high haste stuff. Maybe you didn't even have a Seal of Durinus Chosen Mythic, and so you're already running a high haste ring here. You have a high haste neck, and your haste is really high already. You might want crit Verse. So it's all going to matter on that. Now, there is a new upgrade track coming out with 10.1.5 as well that I made a video about, and that is basically your vault loot can go on this new track that you can upgrade to 447. So if you do plus 16 keys and you choose an item that's plus 16 or higher from your vault, you can upgrade that to 447. That's very significant when it comes to rings, because there's some good rings in the Mythic Plus depending on which stats you want. So you will, I kind of took a step back from Mythic Plus. I'm probably going to be doing them again to try to get one of these rings to upgrade up. There's also good rings in the raid as well, so you want to keep an eye out for those rings as well. And it's just going to depend on what stats you want. You could take this as an opportunity as well to just get rid of your Seal of Durinus Chosen. If you get two really good rings, since you're searching for rings, you might take it as an opportunity to get rid of that and just, especially if you're running Crusading Strikes, if you want more haste, right? So you could take it as an opportunity to get rid of that as well. For me, the obvious answer is in Halls of Infusion with this Circle of Ascended Frost. Now, of course, I would like to get this from my vault more than I would like to get it from loot, but initially getting it from loot and upgrading it to 441 would probably be the play. And this is a high haste, low Verse ring. This would give me the most damage out of any other ring in here. So if you're like me, if you have kind of high crit, and you're kind of, maybe you're swapping to Crusading Strikes like I am, and you need more haste, this high haste, low verse ring from Halls of Infusion is a very good choice. Now, if you go through here, you're going to see a lot of good rings, depending on what you need. In Freehold, we have a crit haste ring that's high haste, low crit. And we're not going to go through every single dungeon, but a lot of these dungeons have rings that'll be useful to you. You're basically just trying to steer away from mastery for the most part, and then just choosing the stats that you need to get your character to its level. So very interesting changes coming out. Again, it shouldn't be a nerf. It allows us a little bit more optimization with choosing our gear instead of just using this old ring. Maybe a little bit more stamina. Maybe we just ditch the Seal of Durin's Chosen. I'm not saying I will for sure, but maybe we get rid of the Seal of Durin's Chosen altogether, with in favor of a little bit more haste or something like that. But yeah, that's where we are right now with this. And if there's anything that changes with this or whatever, I'll definitely talk about that. But I did want to point that out in this video and talk about where you're going to be wanting to put your stats and stuff like that once we get rid of this Onyx Amulet finally. So that's it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. Other than that, everybody have a good one.